Welcome to the deep dive. We take the sources you send us and really dig into them to pull out the key knowledge.
That's the idea.
So today we're tackling a really complex and frankly pretty troubling situation. It's happening, or happened, in Castle Rock, Colorado.
Right.
It involves the Montgomery family and their experience renting a house at 5723 Berry Ridgeway.
And we've got a lot to work with here.
We really do. Text messages, police reports, social media stuff, screenshots, formal complaints, quite the mix.
Yeah, a whole range of sources.
And our mission, really, is to try and understand what actually happened. We're talking alleged harassment, retaliation, maybe even legal violations against this family.
And what's fascinating or maybe disturbing is how it apparently started.
Exactly. It seems like the landlord-tenant relationship started out, well, pretty good, cordial even, but then it just took this incredibly sharp negative turn. That contrast is really stark.
Absolutely. We've got records showing those initial interactions, and they paint a very, very different picture from what came later. Understanding that shift is, I think, crucial.
Totally agree. So from around June through early September 2024, the landlord, Allison Nelson, seemed, genuinely pleased with the Montgomerys.
Yeah, the text suggests that.
She even called them rock star renters. I mean, you don't get much better than that, right?
High praise indeed.
And there were even talks, apparently, about the Montgomerys maybe buying the house from them.
Right, which suggests a certain level of trust and comfort there.
Yeah, and Allison apparently showed empathy about some serious family health stuff the Montgomerys were dealing with, like their lawn care, their communication. It all just sounded like a textbook good tenancy.
And establishing that baseline is so important because it makes the later allegations stand out so much more. This wasn't some long simmering feud, something definitely flipped.
And that flip seems to happen late September 2024. And the trigger, it looks like it was the Montgomerys putting up a Kamala Harris yard sign and an LGBTQ plus pride flag.
The timing certainly points that way. It seems their political and social expression might have been the catalyst. The timeline is very tight there.
It really is. On September 29th, Allison Nelson sends a message, pretty direct, demanding they take down any political or sexual orientation signs.
And the reason given?
Vague complaint. Neighbors. No specifics mentioned at that point, apparently.
Interesting. And what really stands out is how the Montgomerys responded. They didn't just roll over.
No, they didn't. They pushed back, mentioning their First Amendment rights, fair housing laws, disability laws. They even brought up their service animals.
So they knew their rights, or at least believed they did, and were willing to assert them against what they saw as, landlord overreach.
Yeah. And it seems like that pushback wasn't received well, because after that, the sources detail this uptick in surveillance and complaints, especially from these specific neighbors, Brandon and Rachel Fleming.
Right, the Flemings. And that's when we see direct confrontation enter the picture. Rachel Fleming allegedly threatening them, saying, better watch your back.
Which is, yeah, that's a clear escalation. Very direct, very concerning. That's intimidation.
Absolutely. It moves way beyond just disagreeing about a sign. And it wasn't just talk, right?
Apparently not. We have accounts of these neighbors, like, watching the family, taking pictures, and then spreading stuff online, claims that the sources say were false or exaggerated. It sounds like an attempt to create a really hostile atmosphere.
Yeah, taking it public like that, spreading potential misinformation, they can absolutely make a family feel unsafe in their own home. It's a different level of conflict.
Which then leads to the police getting involved. October 4th, 2024, Brandon Fleming calls 911 about a security light.
A security light?
Yeah. And here's a detail that just jumps out from the report. When the police show up, he admits he's armed.
He admitted that to the police.
Yep. And also refused to talk directly to the Montgomerys. Calling 911 over a light and being armed, what does that signal?
Well, it's definitely not typical for your average neighbor dispute. Calling 911 for something like that, plus admitting you're armed, it adds this whole layer of seriousness, potential threat. It's just zero interest in talking it out, just straight to law enforcement.
Yeah. And for the Montgomerys, that must have felt incredibly unsettling. Dangerous, maybe.
You'd have to think so.
So what did the police find? Did they agree about the light?
Nope.
I know you're probably busy, but so we did get a call, unfortunately, from your neighbor in the back. And if you guys have a light or something that shines towards their home?
They have two that shine in our room, too.
Okay.
It's just a Ring security camera, and it has
And
motion detector,
Okay.
floodlights.
It's a Ring. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And sorry. And again, I'm sorry to even
That's
bother
okay.
you guys.
That's okay.
Yeah, so they
Report says the light wasn't misdirected. No code violations, nothing.
Okay, but Fleming apparently said he'd just keep calling 911 anyway for things like that.
Which really raises questions about misusing emergency services, doesn't it? Like using 911 as a tool for something else.
Definitely. And then, right after this police visit, Allison Nelson, the landlord, sends over a property manager.
I'll be out of here and
Okay.
yeah, just let me know how I can help. I want to make this work, and I don't want for you guys to live anyway, but
The only thing that my attorney did recommend is he did want me to ask if you could ask your client when she will be coming to get her stuff out of the basement.
Okay.
And then I'm supposed to let him know that answer, and we'll decide where we want to go from there.
Okay.
This
So
is no longer
none
her
of
house.
that matters. But yes,
Okay.
it is her house still. I mean, if you guys would rather go the route of not just trying to get along, because I don't have any control over the neighbors. I don't have control over. No, because we aren't liable. We aren't liable to terminate the conversation, slam the door in my face. I'm trying to talk. I'm trying to talk to everybody on both sides to get everybody to calm down. Because if this is how you guys want to live, then this is how you guys want to live. I mean,
I don't understand why you're standing at the door arguing with my family.
I don't need to talk to all three of you, so you can come up here or you can talk to me, but I'm talking to them right now.
You're not going to stand on my doorstep, okay? And it's my doorstep.
I'm being rich!
Have a great day.
Yep, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye!
Yep. Grow up. Thank you.
Oh, really? What for?
Citing, wait for it, neighbor complaints.
The timing on that is, wow.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder about coordination, doesn't it? It seems almost too coincidental.
It really does feel like it points towards some kind of coordinated effort. And this whole thing spilled out beyond just the street, right? It went online.
Mm-hmm. Community Facebook groups, places like Carriage Hills Neighborhood, Crystal Valley Neighbors.
So these online forums became a major stage for this conflict.
It looked that way.
Yeah.
And we see names popping up repeatedly. Ashley Yates, Brandon Fleming again, Melissa Lopez, Bobby Martin. It shows how a local issue can just blow up online.
And Ashley Yates, her role seems particularly significant. She was an admin in these groups.
Yeah, an admin. And she's accused of not just allowing, but actively, facilitating the harassment. And then there's the conflict of interest issue, which is just huge.
What was that again?
The sources say Ashley Yates was the real estate agent for both the landlords, the Nelsons, and for the neighbor, Brandon Fleming.
Wait, what? How is that even allowed? Representing both sides in a situation that's clearly become hostile.
Exactly. It raises massive ethical questions. A potential breach of professional conduct. Whose interests was she actually serving? It's a critical point.
No kidding. Okay, so the harassment wasn't just political views or neighbor stuff. It also allegedly zeroed in on something really personal, disability and service animals.
And this is where we potentially cross a very serious legal line. Fair Housing Act, ADA. These laws protect against discrimination based on disability family status.
Right.
And then came more complaints about holiday decorations, other things, trying to control protected activities. It just paints this picture of increasing hostility, looking for excuses.
And all of this seems to build towards eviction.
Retaliatory eviction.
Can I help you?
Yes, sir. Is this Eric or Josh?
Who is this?
Yes, I have eviction notices that I either need to post or give to somebody.
Coming so soon after the sign dispute, the disability disclosures, it strongly suggests a connection, retaliation.
What reasons did they give for the eviction?
Things like Christmas lights, those ongoing neighbor complaints, alleged lease violations that seem tied back to the protected speech or the disability issues. They look pretty flimsy, possibly pretextual when you see the whole sequence of events.
Just finding anything they could latch onto, maybe?
That's certainly how it appears based on these sources.
And sadly, it seems the pressure didn't let up. The online campaigns involving Yates, Martin, others, they reportedly got worse.
Tragically, yes. And with very real, devastating consequences.
What happened?
The sources state that these online posts, the harassment, led to people contacting the wife's employer.
For sure. And just when you think it couldn't get more complicated, There's another layer. The landlord's own stuff left at the house.
Right. Their personal property, furniture, boxes, equipment, just left behind in the rental.
So the Montgomerys couldn't even fully use the space they were paying for.
Exactly. It's an infringement on their right to quiet enjoyment, their right to possess the property they rented. We're talking stuff in closets, the garage, living areas.
And did the Montgomerys...
Eventually, their lawyer sent a formal letter demanding removal. But still, broken promises, delays. The Nelsons apparently said they'd get it in spring 2024.
Spring 2024. When did the lawyer send the letter?
November 1st, 2024, with the 15-day deadline, which they clearly missed.
So the Montgomerys are stuck storing and living around someone else's belongings for months with no compensation.
That's what the sources indicate. But then the landlords apparently tried to flip the script.
How?
By later claiming the Montgomerys had stolen or misused the very items they'd begged the Nelsons to come and collect.
Unbelievable. Just weaponizing their own failure to act.
It seems incredibly cynical, yes, trying to deflect or create counterclaims.
False, okay, they claimed.
And the landlord stuff was still in the basement through all this.
Apparently so. The notice of default didn't mention removing it.
And even with all this legal fighting, they still paid November rent.
They did, including that disputed $200 late fee the landlords demanded.
Okay, so it looks like this is heading for a major court battle, but it didn't quite get there.
Correct. Sometime before the March 1st, 2025 move-out date, the parties actually reached a settlement agreement. And that proved to be the case because the fight wasn't over. Montgomery's moved out March 1st.
And then?
The landlord's lawyer sent a new list. Alleged damages totaling, wait for it, $12,727.22.
$12,000. After they settled, what was on that list?
The biggest item was $8,904 for landscaping, which the Montgomerys called ridiculous, pointing out the yard was snow-covered all winter and landscaping. Another $850 for cleaning, on top of the $350 already agreed to, $732 for a shower enclosure and blinds, $125 for an unpaid water bill, but allegedly no bill provided, and $125 for trash removal.
And the Montgomerys are disputing all of this.
Absolutely. They say it's inflated, normal wear and tear, pre-existing stuff, or just made up.
Do they have proof?
They say they do. They point to the Zillow listing photos taken right after they left. Shows the snow-covered yard, no massive damage visible. Shows the house looking clean, market-ready. They also have current photos, post-snowmelt, showing a healthy yard, directly contradicting that huge landscaping charge.
It didn't stop with money demands, did it?
No. The landlords apparently accused the Montgomerys of stealing the stuff from the basement, the stuff the landlords never removed.
They called the police about that.
Yes, involved Castle Rock PD. Erica Montgomery reported being harassed by officers about it, even though the lease didn't say anything about those items.
And then the house went up for sale almost immediately.
Less than a week after they moved out. And the listing agent, Ashley Yates, described as a close associate of the landlords.
This connection seems important because...
Because the Montgomerys allege Yates launched an attack on them online. Defamatory, hateful posts on Facebook, they claim.
And worse.
Allegedly encouraged people to contact Erica's employer, Advent Health, after working there for 6.5 years. A direct consequence, they allege, of this online campaign.
Devastating. So where do things stand legally now?
Well, the Montgomerys filed that formal housing discrimination complaint we mentioned. The Colorado Civil Rights Division is involved. They've requested info from the landlords.
And the settlement agreement allowed them to sue for damages beyond the deposit.
Right. Which suggests they might still pursue legal action over those disputed $12,000 charges and maybe other damages like the...
They also sent a notice of intent to sue the town.
Yes, indicating potential action against Castle Rock and others involved. And one more twist, the landlord's main lawyer withdrew from the eviction case in May 2025, citing a breakdown with the clients, though co-counsel stayed on.
Wow. What a saga. It really shows how fast things can just completely spiral out of control in a rental situation.
It really does. From stored items to signs to lights to eviction to massive post-move-out claims and job loss, it's a lot.
So for you listening, what are the big takeaways here? I mean, number one seems to be documentation, documentation, documentation.
Absolutely critical. Photos, videos, emails, texts, keep records of everything. It looks like the Montgomerys' record-keeping was key for them to fight back with counterclaims and dispute the damage charges.
Yeah, those Zillow photos seem pretty powerful against that landscaping bill.
Definitely. This case also just shines a harsh light on the power imbalance that can exist between landlords and tenants and the potential for that power to be misused.
The discrimination claims are serious based on disability, political views, maybe religion, It really underscores why fair housing laws exist and why tenants need to know their rights.
And don't forget the neighbor element. How disputes next door can spill over and involve the landlord, sometimes making things much worse.
True. And the alleged role of social media here, that's chilling. Using it to attack someone online and getting them fired? It shows how online conflict can have brutal real-world consequences.
And finally, that huge discrepancy between the damage claims and the photographic evidence. It's a stark reminder about unfair security deposit withholding. Tenants need to know they have options, counterclaims, discrimination complaints if they feel they're being treated unfairly.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About the basic duties landlords have and the fundamental rights tenants possess. Especially around things like personal expression, disability needs, and just basic fairness.
Yeah, and how these incredibly bitter conflicts affect not just the people directly involved, but potentially the whole community fabric. It's a lot to reflect on. So let's try and sum up the potential legal mess here. For the landlords, Allison and Matthew Nelson, what are we looking at?
Well, potentially quite a bit. Violations of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination, retaliation based on disability, maybe family status, protected speech. Similar violations under the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, which covers sexual orientation, gender identity, disability.
Okay.
Then there's breach of quiet enjoyment, all the harassment, the intrusions, retaliation specifically for requesting disability accommodations. That's a big one. Plus, potential issues with how they use their LLC or PO box, maybe trying to shield assets improperly. And finally, their connection to Ashley Yates. If she acted improperly as their agent, they could be liable for her actions to the rest. Bad faith, things like that.
Right, because she was acting for them. What about the neighbors, the Flemings?
For Brandon and Rachel Fleming, you're looking at potential civil suits for harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, maybe even criminal charges, depending on the severity of those threats.
Like the watch your back comment.
Exactly. Also, misusing 9/11 is often illegal. Defamation for spreading false stuff online.
Yeah.
And possibly stalking, given the alleged surveillance and pattern of intimidation.
And Ashley Yates, the agent caught in the middle. Or maybe driving it.
Her situation looks really bad from a professional standpoint.
Yeah.
Facilitating harassment, that huge conflict of interest, that could mean trouble with her real estate license, suspension, revocation even.
Wow.
And civil liability, too. Tortious interference related to the wife losing her intentional infliction of emotional distress for her role in the online campaigns.
So, looking at everything, what are the key things that make this look like a pattern, not just isolated incidents?
Several things really stand out. The timeline is, number one, that sharp turn right after the signs went up.
Right.
Then, the sudden escalation of neighbor complaints and online stuff right after the Montgomerys put up security cameras seems reactive. The repeated 911 calls about nothing, basically. The fact that the same agent represented the landlords and the main complaining neighbor that just screams coordination or at least a massive conflict.
Yeah, that's hard to ignore.
And finally, the job loss. That direct, terrible consequence stemming from the public campaign, it makes the harm undeniable.
So, wrapping this up, what's the bottom line from this deep dive?
Based purely on the sources we've reviewed, the evidence points pretty strongly towards a coordinated, escalating campaign of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation against the Montgomery family.
With specific roles played by different parties.
Exactly. The landlords, certain neighbors, the real estate agent, they all seem to have played a part, according to these documents. And as a result, they all face potentially serious legal consequences, civil, maybe criminal, professional sanctions.
It seems the Montgomery family has pretty strong grounds for legal action here based on this evidence.
The facts presented certainly support that conclusion. It appears they have substantial claims against several people.
This whole deep dive really reveals a just deeply concerning chain of events. It raises huge questions, doesn't it? About tenant rights, free speech at home, and the responsibilities of landlords, neighbors, even real estate agents.
It really does. And it makes you think, how can people protect themselves if they find themselves in a situation like this?
Yeah.
And what needs to change systemically, maybe, to stop these kinds of abuses?
Yeah. And it really hammers home the importance of documentation, doesn't it? Keeping records of everything, every text, every incident.
Absolutely critical. And knowing your rights as a tenant, that's vital.
Well, thanks for digging through all this with me. It's a lot to process.
It certainly is a very complex and troubling case.